Midpoint and distance formula. The first thing we're going to talk about is your midpoint, which is just a halfway point between two coordinates. So all you're doing is you're splitting the difference between 2 points. And think of it as like the average. You're adding two things together and dividing it by 2 because there's 2 of them. So you're going to add your x's together, divide by 2. You're going to add your y's together, divide by 2. So in our first example, let's make this a little bit bigger. In your first example, you've got your x1 and y1, and you've got your x2 and y2 coordinates. So it's like you've got your first set of coordinates, and you've got your second set of coordinates. So what we'll do is you will add 4 and -2, divide by 2, and you will add 5 and 8 and divide by 2. And this is written as a coordinate, so that's why we have it in parentheses. So 4 plus -2 is going to be 2, and 5 plus 8 is going to be 13. And we're dividing them by 2. And so now we just reduce. 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1. And then 13 over 2, we can either leave it as a fraction, we can leave it as 13 over 2, or we can turn it as a decimal. 13 over 2 would be 6.5. So the halfway point between 4, 5 and -2, 8 would be 1 and 6.5. So our second one here, so you've got your x and y, and think of it as like your first set of points, your second set of points. So you add -2 plus -3, divide by 2. You add -10 plus 6, divide by 2. So -2 plus -3 is -5. -10 plus 6 is going to be -4. And now we divide by 2. So -5 divided by 2 is going to be -2.5. -4 divided by 2 is -2. All right. So here's x and y. Your first set of points, your second set of points. So we have 12 plus -15 divided by 2. 20 plus -12 divided by 2. Okay, so 12 plus -15 is going to be -3. And 20 plus -12 is going to be 8. And, of course, that's divided by 2. So we'll get -1.5 and 4. Okay, so now let's say that you are given the midpoint and you're given an end point, and we're going to find the other end point. So basically what's going to happen here is that we don't know what one of the x's is. So x plus 10 divided by 2. And then we have y plus 5 divided by 2. And our midpoint is 2, 3. So basically this is what it is kind of to start off with, okay? And so we know here that the x's, these go together, and the y's go together. So this is kind of what we're starting off with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group these together. So I have x plus 10 over 2 equals 2. And we'll set that up as an equation. And what I want to do, kind of like we did, if you remember, like with sine and cosine and tangent, remember what we did when we had something on the bottom? We moved it up and over, and I multiplied. So now I have x plus 10 equals 4. And I subtract 10. So 4 minus 10 is going to be negative 6. So x equals negative 6. And I'll do the same thing for my y's. I have y plus 5 over 2 equals 3. I'll move 2 to the other side and I'll multiply. So y plus 5 equals 6. Subtract 5. 6 minus 5 is going to be 1. So my two numbers that I get, I've got a negative 6 and a 1. Those are my coordinates. Okay? So we can kind of skip this first step. I was just showing you how, like this step right here, I was just showing you how we arrived at that from the beginning. You're going to put your x's together, and you'll put your y's together from the beginning, okay? So from the beginning, what we'll do is x plus the end point, 1, divided by 2, equals the negative 10. We move your 2 over and your multiply. So x plus 1 equals negative 20. We subtract 1. X equals negative 21. Then we'll do the same thing for the y's. Y plus 6 divided by 2 equals negative 12. It's going to be always set equal to the midpoint. Set it equal to the midpoint. So we'll move the 2. Whoops, it switched on me here. So we'll move the 2 up and over and multiply by it. So y plus 6 equals negative 24. Subtract 6. So y equals negative 30. So my coordinates would be negative 21, comma, negative 30. Okay. So for this one, my next one, x plus 16 divided by 2 equals negative 12. Move my 2 up and over, multiply by it. So x plus 16 equals negative 24. I subtract 16. So negative 24 minus 16 equals negative 40. And for my y's, I have y plus 20 divided by 2 equals 6. Multiply by 2, so y plus 20 equals 12. If I subtract 20, y equals negative 8. So my coordinates would be negative 40, negative 8. On my next one, x plus 9 divided by 2 equals negative 18. Move my 2 up and over, multiply by it. So x plus 9 equals negative 36. If I subtract 9, x equals negative 45. And then I have y plus negative 4 divided by 2 equals negative 2. Multiply by my negative 2. And I'm going to go ahead and write this as y minus 4, just so it's a little bit less confusing, because y plus negative 4 is the same thing as y minus 4 equals negative 4. If I add 4, I get y equals 0. So my coordinates are going to be negative 45, comma 0. Okay, so now I get to distance formula. Okay, so distance formula is the square root of x. I subtract my x's and I square it, and I subtract my y's. Now, what's important is that you do the same order for your x's as you do your y's. So here you've got X and Y, X and Y. So here's like your first set, here's your second set. So when I start to plug in here, when I subtract my X's, it doesn't matter what I do first, okay? So even if I did my first set of X's first, like if I did 2 minus -9, that's okay. Like I don't have to do -9 minus 2, but if I did 2 minus -9, for my Y's, you would have to do 8 minus 4, okay? So whichever X you do first, you have to do the Y that goes with that same X first, okay? But if we follow our formula, we're going to do -9 minus 2 squared plus 4 minus 8 squared, okay? Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to type that in to my calculator. So let's see here, -9 minus 2 squared. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's clear that out. Okay, so we go to our square root. So hit second and then you'll hit the x squared key. Put that in parentheses. So -9 minus 2, close your parentheses, squared, plus, and then let's see, what was the rest of it? 4 minus 8 squared. Put that in parentheses. 4 minus 8 squared. And we'll go 1 decimal place, 11.7. Okay? 11.7. And that's it. All right, so for the next one, so we got x, y, x, y. So here's our first set of points, our second set of points, and then we just plug it in. So I have 3 minus -12 plus -10 minus -20. Now, you may want to clean this up. Remember, double negatives is going to turn into a plus. So this right here is actually going to turn into a plus. Double negatives turn to a plus, okay? So I have the square root of 3 plus 12 squared. So the square root, put it in parentheses, 3 plus 12 squared plus -10 plus 20 squared. -10 plus 20 squared. And I'll get 18.0, we'll go 3 decimal places, or 2 decimal places since there's a 0 there. So 18.03. So 18.03. Okay. So I've got xy, xy. Here's my first set of points, my second set of points. So I have -12 minus 15 squared plus 13 minus -17 squared. Now the double negatives is going to turn into a plus. Okay, so -12 minus 15, my first one. So the square root of -12 minus 15 squared. And then 13 plus 17 for my second one. Let's see, squares. Oh, I forgot my plus. Plus 13 plus 17 squared. So 40.4. There we go. Okay. So doing Pythagorean theorem to find the distance between 2 points. So all you want to do is plot your points, and we're going to use Pythagorean theorem. So if I plot 3, -1, and -5, 4. So what I do here is I'm going to count the distance on my graph here. So I've got, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? I've got 5 and 8 here. And so I've formed a right triangle. So now what I can do is Pythagorean theorem. I will do 5 squared plus 8 squared, and that's basically going to give me c squared. So if I do 5 squared plus 8 squared, that gives me 89 equals c squared. And now what I want to do is take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 89 is going to be 9.4. So that third side here is 9.4. And I'll do the same thing over here. So if I plot 0, 6 and 4, 2, okay, I know that this distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this distance is 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. So 4 squared plus 4 squared, that's going to give me 32 equals c squared. And then I take the square root, of both sides, and the square root of 32 is going to be 5.7. So on this problem, we had our coordinates marked, and we've got 7 was the height here. And if we count going across, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 is going across the bottom. So if we connect our 2 points, we have our right triangle. So when we do Pythagorean theorem, we have 7 squared plus 12 squared. And when we do 7 squared plus 12 squared, we'll get 193. Of course, that's going to be equal to c squared. And when we take the square root of both sides, the square root of 193 is going to be 13.9. Okay. So for the last one, when we plot our points, we plot 1, 8, and -8, -2. Okay. And you can connect your triangle. So like you could connect it, going across this way. Okay. You could have also connected it, if you wanted to, you could connected it going this way. It doesn't matter. Either way you want to do it. Okay. So I'll just do it this way, because either way is going to give you a right triangle. Okay, so our height is going to be a height of 10. And our base here going across is going to be 9. So we'll do 9 squared plus 10 squared equals c squared. So 9 squared plus 10 squared is going to be 181 equals c squared. Take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 181 is going to be 13.5. Okay, so this is a way you could do it if you had some graph paper. If you couldn't remember the distance formula, if you had graph paper, you could plot your points and do it using Pythagorean theorem.